back on track to become an internationally successful life and business coach. Now she's going to add author to her list of achievements. Rhiannon, welcome to Good Morning. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks. Great to be here.
I've got to talk about the title of the book, How to Climb Mount Everest in Sandals. How did you come up with that title?
Now, if I was doing it for the Kiwi market, I would have done How to Climb Mount Everest in Jandals.
Yes.
The title is, you can't climb Everest in sandals. Like, you're totally under-resourced, you know, like, how are you going to make it?
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be something that would, you know, that would grab the person's attention.
So what's the book about? What are you trying to, what messages are you trying to get across?
The beginning of the book's about my life story, so all of the trials and tribulations that I've been through. And then the back of the book's, you know, the start of coaching, like the start of how to change your life and the things that you need to do to you know, make it different, make it work for you.
So why did you decide to put out this book? And how long has it taken you to sort of get it to where it is now?
Good question. I've had the idea for 10 years.
Right.
And I just kept rewriting the first 60 pages over and over because I just couldn't make it work. And then I said to myself last year, I'm either going to write the book or just be quiet, like just do it. So I wrote it in 12 weeks and I just poured my heart and soul into it, and you know, everything's in there. And yeah, it's not easy to share from that point of view because it's lumps and bumps and all. It's like, here's my cellulite right here. What do you think, Brandon? You know, but I just thought, who am I not to share if I'm changing a life? Who am I not to share? Let's
talk about your life, because you've had a pretty interesting life, a pretty full-on life. Starting at childhood, you were sexually abused, and then it led on to a number of other things. Tell us about your journey and your story, and I guess what you've learned from it.
Well, you know, I have had a lot of trials and tribulations, but I think the landmark things in my life have been my brother's suicide, losing many babies through miscarriage, and obviously my husband coming out as trans. And, you know, while I really believe that you undergo a process of being under the carver's knife, and while, you know, each stroke of the carver's knife really, you know, went right through my heart, and I thought I wouldn't survive, I did survive, and it's actually made me and brought me all the happiness that I have today. And so now I want to teach people that that problem is actually an opportunity for growth and happiness. So I really want to translate that message.
How did you deal with that? Let's talk about the sexual abuse, and how old were you at the time? So where were you getting your support from?
I was about 11, and when it happened, I told my parents when they came back, and they actually didn't believe it. So that started a whole thing where I couldn't actually be with men. Like, if I was with a man and he'd want to be intimate with me, I'd start to hyperventilate. So even if he wanted to touch me, I'd be like, you know, so I've been in counselling for 20 years, because that's how you sort your life out, lots of different types. And that was really tough for me, because I obviously wanted to share my life and share my femininity and sexuality, but I couldn't. So I thought I'd never enjoy sex. I thought I'd never have that opportunity.
Was your mum around? Because you do mention, I don't know whether you mentioned in the book, but I know through my notes that I've read, your mum wasn't there when you were younger?
When I was 8, my mum left, and I didn't know if she was coming back, so I didn't know, you know, if I would ever see her. So for 10 years, I didn't have any contact with her. So I used to sneak out to try and see her for the first 6 months, because I knew where she was. And when my stepmum and dad found out that I had done that, they said, you do it again, you go into foster care. So I created a belief system that if I'm happy, terrible things would happen. So then when I was 16, I went, I'm finding my mum. I've got to find my mum. Like, just wasn't whole in here. I wasn't home here in my heart. So I basically started to look for my mum every way I could. Marriages, births and deaths registry, old friends, old boyfriends.
Did you feel abandoned? Or?
Totally. Totally. Just, you know, just very lonely, very sad, very empty inside. And then I actually found my mum through an old boyfriend, which is really interesting, who is a long story, but I actually came up through my brother-in-law. And it turns out that they use the same dry cleaner. So I left a note at the dry cleaner, and 10 years later, my mum, you know, left a note at the dry cleaner. My mum comes in, picks it up, and 3 weeks later she called me, but I was 18. She hadn't seen me since I was 8. So she's looking for the 8-year-old girl, and I'm 18, and I'm like, Mum, you know, I'm right here. But she couldn't reach out to me because she's looking for the 8-year-old girl.
Yeah, that's right. You talked about the miscarriages. I mean, I think it was 5 miscarriages that you had. You then went on and you lost your home.
I lost everything.
And you lost everything. What happened?
Well, one day, when my son was a year old, it was his birthday, and I came home to pick up a cheesecake that I baked for my business partner. And when I walked in the door, there was my husband in my lingerie, and I was just like, I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't hold that.
Did you not see it? Did you not see that?
He was a firefighter, an extreme skier, a mechanic. So he was, you know, he was as masculine as you when you're not doing ballet. He was as masculine as you. And no, I didn't see it at all. And so it turned my life upside down. Like, I felt totally deceived, but I lost my mind in that process, and I went into a really dark place. So when he left, so did my income supply, because my business was failing. I had a 1-year-old child. I now have a husband who's trans.
Right.
So I decided to house sit because I couldn't pay rent. Well, I house sat in over 40 houses in 3 years, and I got so tired of house sitting. I just said to my girlfriend, can I borrow a tent? So I borrowed a tent, and I lived in the tent for 3 months, going to the food bank for food with my 4-year-old child who was living on lentils and rice, and I couldn't even pay for him to have swimming lessons.
Oh my
I had
goodness.
nothing.
Oh my goodness.
And then I got a call that my mum is really ill, and I'm one of 8 children, but I'm the only one that would actually go back and be there for her. And I thought, if my mum dies, because I haven't figured out a way to get out of this, I'll never forgive myself. Bang, 4 days later I was on a plane, borrowed points, borrowed money, moved back into my mum's 1-bedroom housing commission unit, and I looked after her for the next 5 months, and I rebuilt my life step by step.
You've done an amazing job, to go through so many things, and I know you've been working with a number of different people. Gillian Anderson,
yep.
You know, how did that happen, and how did that come about?
Oh, it's funny, because, you know, my very first celebrity client was actually a Spice Girl. I can't say which one, but it was a Spice Girl. And I thought my friends were playing a joke on me. They're like, so-and-so's here from the Spice Girls? I'm like, yeah, whatever. And like, no, she is, and she wants to see you. I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I pull the curtain open, and it's like, oh my God, you should have told me that she was here. So that started a relationship, you know, and they obviously passed my number on, and I worked with Gillian for about 3 years, but she is lovely.
And the rest is history. Rhiannon, this is all we've got time for, you know,
oh, wow, it's fast.
I know, I'd love to chat to you. I know there's so much, but if people want to find out more, obviously they can get the book, because it sounds like a fantastic read. Thanks for joining us today. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And you'll find info on Rhiannon and her book on our website. Time now, though, to head up to Auckland for One News with